Da 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 da! What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes, get those notifications out, let people know I've gone live. In the meantime, if you've never met me before, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside, and I pretty much stayed in this inside, like inside and inside. We were storming. I was sitting here in this office chair for pretty much most of the day, being a slug, but also appreciating the beautiful big picture window that I have, that I get to sit here and watch the snowstorm and actually watch the birds, how they kind of fly and kind of soar in the gusts of the wind, and they were getting pretty close to my window and everything, so it was kind of nice to have that little bit of connection to nature, right? And I live almost downtown Winnipeg, Manitoba, and so I was just being a slug, and it was my first day off. And normally I don't really give myself a heavy agenda for the first day because I know I'm going to disappoint myself. And that's the truth. I know I'm going to disappoint myself on my first day off if I set those goals and I kind of force myself to get things done. Sometimes we have to, sometimes there are appointments and agendas and stuff like that, but, when you're coming out of a hard week, I don't know about you guys, but I love a good crash. I love staying in my pajamas. I like not to do housework. I just like to delve into content. I'm a YouTuber. I spend a lot of time in YouTube, not just in creating content, but also taking in content, listening to different perspectives, delving deep in some of those interests that I've always had my entire life. But for different reasons, we're never able to nurture those interests of mine up until, I don't know, YouTube started it all for me. And I don't even know if it was YouTube that started it all for me, because I was actually thinking about that today, in those dynamic relationships that I have with the Christmas coming up and getting together with family and stuff, and doing a little bit of reminiscing about, well, kindnesses for the most part, and discerning for myself, because a lot of what I've been doing in the past half a dozen years or so is discerning. It's a new word for me. I've just learned the proper, um um what do you call that, definition for the word. And so I've been actually practicing in myself, uh in a lot of it, in the reminiscing, in where I might have made some mistakes along the way, just because I didn't have the proper definition of this word discerning, because I did not grow up. And in fact, it was almost the opposite. If I look at it, it was almost the exact opposite definition to what the true definition was. And it never dawned on me that I could have made a mistake there, that somewhere along the line I picked up some information, or I was lacking in that education as to, right, a word that, well, I believe is going to serve me quite well right now, because it's not a word that I put into practice. It wasn't a word that I thought that I was supposed to play with, that I was supposed to reenact or introduce in my little bit of movement in my life. I come to realize that it would have served me really, really well if I had. I did anyway to a certain extent. But a lot of my understanding of the definition of discernment was misguided in how I understood it. So it's like when you have a curious interest and it's not the norm, and so you have to kind of keep it secret to yourself, right? And so I did play a little bit with the word, but because of my misguided understanding that it was playing in the realm of judgment, and that judgment was something that I shouldn't be doing. And I had, right, it's not topics that concerned me in any way. I never moved in that direction, right? I didn't play with the word discerning as much as I could have. I didn't delve in as deep as I could have, right? It was a pretty good word. It was a word that, right, I come to understand pretty good, but it was kind of like underground with me, right? Because everything comes to the surface. It's part of your nature. Everything comes to the surface, right? But when it's drilled into you that it shouldn't come to the surface, that it's not something that should be a part of your life, nobody needs to hear it, nobody needs to know it, right? Mind your own business. And right, and then also somewheres I picked up along the line that discerning was judgment, right? And that was a bad thing, and truly it wasn't a bad thing. It was my survival, it was my hypervigilance, it was my paying attention to my surroundings. It was making decisions slowly, right? And a lot of that was hidden from me, right? I didn't even know a lot of these powerful words, because discernment is one of my powerful words, right? I'm pretty sure of it, my 54 powerful words, right? We're going to delve into it a little bit deeper. I've got them written down, but like I said, today I was like a slug. I didn't really do much, and I didn't have any expectations that I would have. But going back to that, if I had, right? If I had made that big goal list, if at the end of my day that I didn't get that goal list in, and I would have failed myself because I was tired. I need a little bit of rest. And I do push myself quite often, and I do, even though I got my flu shots and my boosters and stuff, I can feel when the system is not running at par, right? And at par just means passable. Because on the norm, I'm like the Energizer Bunny. It's a aspect of myself that's appreciated. It makes it so that my presence is always in high demand, even by myself, right? So if I had to move, I would have moved. But I didn't put that pressure on myself. And I'm glad that I didn't, because I think I would have disappointed myself today with a little bit of guilt and shame because I really didn't get much done. But I think I got done what was needed, and I think that was a little bit of rest. You guys, I don't have the insights or the quotes or right, those other aspects of my powerful words written down, but I do have the powerful word. So we're just going to pick one of those words quickly. First perspective that comes to mind as we pull up that word, and we'll just chit chat about it for a couple of minutes. I will make some movement. I never get through a set of days off without making a little bit of movement, whether it's in my personal life, definitely in my brand, right? Definitely in my brand, but also in that little bit of insight of what's that next move? What's the direction? And that's where I spend a little bit of time by myself, right? In reflection, taking in lessons, Not really doing much, but the little bit that I did do, just again being in my own space, being that company for myself, and really taking a look of what would I like to do this year. And when I was on YouTube today, looking at content, and what I was looking at was trekking, and I was watching a few trekkers. They're YouTubers that go off on these adventures in other countries, up in the mountains and in Mother Nature, on the norm. I think, like I said, I right when you feel that your body is run down. With me, I always get it at the back of my throat, but the back of the throat where it attaches to my ears. So whenever I'm trying to give myself a little bit of comfort, you'll see my finger in my ear trying to give it a little bit of an itch, right? Because I haven't talked at all today. So this is the first time I'm talking. So it makes me recognize that, yes, right? Glad I got my flu shot, right? The last thing I need right now is to get sick, right? Christmas is coming up. We're spending a little bit of time with my family, right? My sister just got out of the hospital. I haven't seen her since she's been out of the hospital. And we're not going to spend a lot of time together on at Christmas, a couple hours on Christmas Eve. But I think in this moment, right, it's enough. It's enough, right? We need to, I think, I don't know. Maybe it's in that idea what I was doing today and looking at what I wanted to do this year. What's my goal? January 1st, I want to have a kind of a set plan, right? I'm saving a little bit of money now because I know the plan's going to cost, but I don't know what the plan is. And because I need that stick with the bag at the end in order to keep that movement forward, right? Part of my program is the reward and punishment system, and I don't work very well in the punishment system anymore. It doesn't work very well at all. Usually backfires. Pretty hard, but that's for another day. Let's just pick a card here. Um, One of my 54 powerful words, and like I said, we'll just delve into it for a couple of minutes, and then off we go. I'm going to end my day, maybe see if I can accomplish a little bit tomorrow. And this card is balance. Okay, let me have a little sip. Where's my straw of my I got a jukes box here, you guys. I'm right, not every day, but once every few days I try to have a fruit box, and it's usually, something purpley or red because they say those are the ones with the antioxidants is in them. And I have been enjoying grape juice lately, so mm, and it's just enough. It's not too much. I think it's like, yeah, it's less than 100 calories for that box of grape juice, and there's a lot of sugar in grape juice. Okay, you guys, we got the word balance. Now, I got all my words and all my insights written down in my 54 powerful word book right here, right? But I didn't quite do it in order when I was writing it in the book. So it might take me a few minutes, and I'm not going to go through my pages while I'm live in the moment. So, first impression with this word balance, right? Is that relationship that I have with those other parts of me. I look out to the world right now and I see, right, those human souls, and they're doing their very best. They're out there and they're putting in the work. But the thing is, they're doing it individually. Um, how can I say individually? Not in partnership with themselves, more in combative and resistance, right? Today I wasn't resisting. I felt that I needed a little bit of a rest, and I've needed that rest on my set of days off for the past couple of months. I really, to be honest, I have been feeling a little bit guilty about that, right? And especially when I see the effects that it has in my personal life, in my household, even, and getting those little projects done in my brand and coming in consistently at the same time every day, right? I've never been super consistent that way, but I've been consistent in showing up every day. And now I find that I am taking that one day off every single week. And if I upload a video, I have 2 days off on my brand. And I've been making great use of it. And I've been applying that day in a Saturday. So I'm still working hard, but because it is that focus in the job that puts the roof over my head in the moment, that's all my energy is going towards, that it's difficult when I get home because I am on fumes at that point when I get home. And so I'm not doing myself justice by making myself come in with energy that is from reserves and not energy that's left over from the day that I had in that job that puts the roof over my head. So the balance is there is not to use what's in the cookie jar, not to use that right. You save that for the emergencies, and that Saturday when I give everything and I expect and I want to give everything to that job that puts the roof over my head in the moment. I expect to expend all that energy, right? But that guilt and shame still will surface because I want to show up, right? And because there's no point in showing up if there isn't that energy there, if I have to steal from the cookie jar, right? Because that's not being the evidence from anybody. That just shows the depletion that I've put myself in. And that is not my intent. And that's not what I want to put out there. Hello, Melvin. Melvin says, my good cheer for today is the farmer I did work for came over and gave me a fistful of cash. Good day. And there is that nice lady yakking again. Why would the farmer you work for give you a big fistful of cash? Is it that fistful of cash? Is that your pay, Melvin? Or is that like a bonus because he had a really good crop and that you worked extra hard for him? So he was sharing the wealth. Is that the idea? Right? Right? Because you put in the work. Oh, it's your pay. Big fistful of cash. Yeah, we get direct deposit at work. It just gets deposited into the account, and then it just gets siphoned from the account just as fast. But when we talk about this word, this powerful word is that balance, right? To know where to save in that reserve of energy. And money is energy too, and it's not a skill that I have practiced in except in when I'm setting my goals, right? And that's where I'm learning to budget. That's where I'm learning to save. That's where I'm learning to say no to myself if I have to. And that's where I'm also learning to daydream, right? Because I'm daydreaming of the trip that I'm going to have. So even though I feel in the back of my mind that I'm punishing myself because, obviously when you're saving money, you are saying no to other things, right? Not as big as a staff charge, right? That didn't help me last year. It was still as bad, but I'm going to make a concerted effort this year. But I have other projects and other things that I need to take care of financially. So that balance for me is to manage to do that. And to manage to do that, I have to partner with myself to make good decisions for myself, to be discerning, right, of my capabilities to future possibilities and my own incapabilities because I have to be realistic in things too, right? I was looking at trips for this year, trekking trips. So I was looking at YouTube videos. I was watching a gentleman who trekked through Peru. A couple of days ago, I was looking at Scotland. They have a, what do you call that when you take those religious pilgrimage? There's a religious 3-day pilgrimage walk that you could do through the Highlands. There's also one that you could do around the loch, like Loch Ness Monster. And as a teenager, it was always a dream for me to go sit on a rock and sing to the Loch Ness Monster and see if I can get it to come to the surface. So it's interesting. I also watched a gentleman who was crossing through Spain, right? So now I'm going to look through the Swiss Alps because I heard Swiss Alps have some good treks going on. I'd love to do the Himalayas. I'd love to go to Tibet. That would be absolutely amazing. It's pretty much the only place where you can still go on private treks because most places they only do the group ones now, and that's not fun. I like to go off by myself. I don't normally like to go off with big groups, right? I like to explore on my own. Like I'm exploring something, like the world is all mine, right? When I used to stay up late, like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, I was such a night owl. And one of the things that I appreciated about being a night owl was the feeling that the world was all mine because the world was asleep, right? You couldn't go off, you couldn't make phone calls, right? Nobody was up except for you. The world was the world was mine, right? It was one of the things that helped me to stay balanced with myself because I found all these little tricks that kind of worked in my life. And even though it wasn't the norm with the everyday day to day of way of living, it worked. It worked for me, right? It worked for me. And I always took into consideration those other parts of me because I always recognized that those other parts of me were there. Didn't necessarily understand what they are. And I'm not going to say that I necessarily understand what they are now or ever will be, right? But part of my balance is just to be able to ride those waves and recognize that, right? Everything is going to be okay. And if I can understand that, then I could ride those waves, right? And not pressure myself and not guilt and shame myself because I'm not going faster. I'm having those slug days, right? That I'm not meeting my goals, that I don't have those goals ready yet, and I only have 2 weeks left to get them, right? Get that bag over my shoulder or in front of me so it's dangling so that it'll keep me going. And I think a lot of that sluggishness that I have right now is because I don't have that directional that I'm in the midst of right now, right? Right? And that's a good word for me. Sometimes I forget that it is in that balance, right? Riding those waves when I have to, and right when it's like a low tide or stuff, I can just kind of step out there and just walk around a little bit easier, right? Knowing that that water isn't up to here, right? Those stresses and those problems aren't up to here. That I'm just not treading water, trying to keep my head above water, that I'm actually, right, floating on my back or going for a nice little floaty in the water, that I'm not stressing out in that, right? But if that storm should hit and those waves should get high, right? That's when you'll see me, right? Jump in. And that's the balance of that, right? That's the balance. And it's in the preparedness, isn't it? that you're able to do that, because if you're not prepared, you're just going to sink and swim when those waves hit you, aren't you? Right? But be prepared in that. But don't be expecting the worst, right? You know, balance. I don't know. That wasn't really where I wanted to go in that. I wanted to go in the direction of that balance in my life, right? Because the balance in my life is when I look out in the world and I see other people, right, putting in the work and making a little bit of movement for themselves. It's like work, right? It's like giving themselves the whip mush, right? It's punishing yourself. It's guilting and shaming yourself. It's not rewarding yourself. It's not enjoying the views along the way. It's not smiling and it's not whistling while you work. And I think for a lot of people, that's where they're getting it wrong. And that's where you can see the imbalance, right? Because it shows that they're not balanced, that they're not in partnership with themselves, right? And that only means that we should take a little bit deeper look, right? Maybe take on a few more interests into our lives, that when we're not enjoying one aspect of our life, that maybe we can just kind of jump into other aspects of our life that we do enjoy, because sometimes it's just a moment, right? It's like when you have those great big problems and you go, oh my goodness, I've been working on this for like 3 days, I just can't get it and I can't sleep and it's on my mind, and the answer is just there and I just don't know what it is. And you just say, forget it. I'm done. Right? I need a break from this. And you go to the beach for the day. And then you go back to work and that answer is right there. It just comes to the surface. And sometimes you just have to get away from that. Right? And I'm not saying you have to go to the beach, but if that's what you love, right? Spending time with your family and stuff, and you've frustrated yourself because you haven't been able to do that. Well, stop something, right? Even if you love it, stop it in the moment and then go just jump in to that other thing that you love, like taking your family to the beach, right? And then when you get back to work, right? The answer surfaces, and then you can go back to whistling while you work without guilting and shaming yourself out because you're not able to spend time with your family at the beach, right? And that's usually what it is. It's for me 100% always guilting and shaming myself out. And there's no reason for that. And I'm grateful that sometimes because it's only sometimes I don't recognize it as guilting or shaming myself. Sometimes it has to be done, right? It's an emergency. If it doesn't get done, everything's gonna fall apart, right? But these are just fancy ways of still guilty and shaming myself, right? Because things will not fall apart, right? If I didn't break it, why is it my responsibility to fix it, right? Right? If we're a team, right? I'm willing to do my share. But if it's your mess, right? You clean it up, or like a good neighbor, ask for some help. Okay, you guys. Balance. I know that's the end of that because I started swaying off in that. Okay. It was shown proven that the Loch Ness monster is a big old fake. Maybe, right? I didn't say that it was real. For my idea for I love dragons, right? I really love dragons. I got lots of dragons all over my house. If you look up there, you can see a dragon right there. A couple of dragons on the shelf below that. I got dragons, right? But when I look back into history and where dragons surfaced, and the legends and the stories around the dragons. I look up into the sky because I love my big picture window, right? And when I look up into the sky and I look at clouds, dragons everywhere, the shape of the clouds, I could just pinpoint one spot in the sky where there's a cloud and I could see a dragon, right? And not one dragon looks the same as the next, right? And it's, I think, a game that children might have played in the 1400s, right? Just by sitting out in a farm field or something and looking up at the sky. It might have been a game, but then again, what you think about is realized, right? And children, yeah, they have great imaginations. And I do believe that the dragon, right, may have been around, but, well, maybe extinct by now, right? Lots of things have become extinct. They said that humans, just in the past 100 years, are responsible for 20,000 different species becoming extinct. Is that? I'm not going to quote that exactly. I think the idea was they had a hand in it. That they had a hand in it. Okay, you guys. Um, when I go to provincial parks, Melvin, it's kind of interesting that you say that. When I go to the provincial parks, I always take a photograph of the payphones because there's always a payphone in the provincial parks for emergencies, right? And I always take a picture of the booths because they're like the old booths from the 70s, right? The old payphone booths with the accordion sliding doors in them and stuff. But yeah, I've got lots of pictures. I think even on this trip, I think I took about 8 or 9 pictures of different phone booths that I had come across in my travels on the trip. You guys all hear about, I believe, on Christmas Eve, if I've got it down packed and ready to go in my decisions as to what I want to do uh, for moving forward, right? Things are always changing, and I can feel that need for change even in myself, right? My interests have changed, even in my clothes. The interests in my clothes have changed in my sense of style. So change is coming, but I would like to have some goals in place so that I can have things that I can move towards, right? I'm staying active, but I'm not doing things just to stay active, right? Because rest and relaxation and that time that I spend with myself that helps to keep me balanced, right? Is important, right? And I'm not going to slave drive myself into getting things done when, right? I'm not even sure if that's the direction that I'm going in. Okay, you guys, that's my good chair, and we'll see you tomorrow.